Good evening and welcome to the Dope Show starring Craig 1974, your clown on YouTube. It's Sunday night. It's 10:52 here Central Time, and I decided to go live because I have nothing else better to do. I'm a loser. Whatever. Uh, Saturday was a cloudy day. Sunday was pretty good. It was a little chilly, but it was pretty good. I managed to grill out some things for lunch. Um, I changed oil in my truck, a great truck. There was one problem I found with that. I went to go grease the ball joints and stuff, and the damn Zerk fittings were rusted. So I gotta heat them up, and I had to do the same thing with the Dakota. The Dakota was much more rustier than the gray truck was. The gray truck is. Gray truck is a little rusty, but it ain't the worst. Yeah, I had to heat up the grease fitting, and I had to use some penetrant on it too, just to get the shit unclogged in there. Um, I just was not a happy camper. Both the lower ball joint and the tie rod, both Zerk fittings were rusted, and you couldn't insert any grease into them. So I'm gonna have to take the wheels off and heat those up and try to get them so you could put grease in them again. Then once I can put grease in them again, I'll maybe put some anti-seize or something on them so they won't rust. I got plenty of anti-seize. Um, by the time I'm dead, I'll still have anti-seize. I don't use it all the time, but every so often I do. Mostly I just use it when I'm installing spark plugs. That's the only time I use anti-seize really. Um, Otherwise, I really don't use it. It's messier and shit. It gets all over it. If it's on your finger, it'll go a bunch of places. It's just like newspaper ink. I remember years ago there was this guy named Jay that worked at the newspaper warehouse where I used to pick up my newspapers for my route at. Jay was always wearing white sweatpants, and he would get ink on his hands, and then he'd be touching his crotch, and you could see a bunch of like newsprint fingers like on his crotch, from what I heard, yeah. But otherwise, I don't use anise. Um, what else? This week I got a few scores. My friend Brian from high school, he lives right in the ghetto of Milwaukee, just before downtown Milwaukee. His area is pretty rough. If I would take you, if I would bring the camera over there to show you, you could see it's rough. It's a ghetto over there. He was telling me stories about the house next door to him getting ransacked right after it became vacant. Uh, just a bunch of lowlifes came in there and just gathered up a bunch of valuables and copper. And my friend down there from my school, he carries guns. He's got the concealed carry permit, and he's got guns for his family's protection. He lives there with his wife and his mother-in-law, and he doesn't want anything happening to them or him, so he concealed carries. Anyways, about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, his father-in-law passed away, and his father-in-law was a big handyman. He had tools galore, tools just up the ass, woodworking equipment, working equipment, just everything. And off and on, he's been giving stuff to me for free. And he gave me what's that a Delta compound miter saw. It's like brand new. It's missing the blade, but it's like brand new. I've noticed that one of the blade washers is missing. I'm gonna have to. I told him about it on Facebook, and I told him that I would send him a photograph of the other one that's on there, just in case he sees it around his house. And if he sees it, he could put it aside and let me know. Because I'd rather have the original blade washer to match the other one. Because I'm afraid if I rig something up, that the blade might go off of balance or something. It's just my worry. So yeah, I mean, I think I got a brand new blade for it, a cheapie. Um, I could just get a fine. I could just I could just rig up a washer to fit on there, or I could find the original one again, and yeah. And once I get it all fixed up, that should sell no problem because the weather's getting nicer and people are going to be remodeling their houses inside and out. So that saw will sell really quick at a decent price. I could keep it, but I got a better Craftsman compound miter saw with a laser. I found it in the trash during spring cleanup. I think it was the last spring cleanup. Um, it was just sounding really weird. The saw, whenever you would let off the trigger, it would just wind down really slowly. And then I put a different blade on it, and then all of a sudden the saw just worked awesome. So I think that's the blade that was put on that saw was the wrong one, causing the saw not to work right. So yeah, I got a awesome Craftsman compound miter saw with a laser, which I got for free. So that's pretty awesome. But yeah, the Delta is not as good as the Craftsman, but it's like a brand new saw. It has low hours on it. Just gotta find a blade washer for it. And he gave me a couple of routers, a couple of old Craftsman routers. One of them is missing the bottom plate on the bottom. The what's that? The fiberglass plate or the plastic plate. It's missing one of those. And the other one seems pretty complete. I don't know if anybody would be interested in those. They could still be used. Um, the, I mean, they're pretty good routers, I think. But according to my friend Brian, he doesn't think so. Um, in my opinion, I mean, I love the older tools. I'd rather make use of the older tools than the newer tools. Yeah. Yeah, last weekend, I think it was last Sunday, I went trash picking late at night. I just went to all the nearby areas where there's no alleys, where they have curbside garbage pickup. And I found a nice extension cord, one of those yellow jacket ones. I plugged it in. It seems to work fine. I haven't tested it out totally, but I think the plug is stressed out. I could just add a new plug on it. Those extension cords are pretty expensive because I bought one before, and that was years ago. So yeah, I got a decent extension cord, and then I found just a regular snapper push mower. The snapper push mower came with the bag, the side chute. Um, it's missing. There's something wrong with the band brake cable, and plus the pull rope is busted off. And I think I got a set of handlebars with a set of matching handlebars with all the cables and stuff for it. So I'll just swap handlebars once I get to it. Yeah, I've been selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Um, right now is the best time because people are home more and they get to surf the internet more and shop online. So this right now is the greatest time to sell stuff online. Don't overprice things, but just put reasonable prices on them. Things. Um, I sold three steel wheels for my brother. I was by my brother's house. I think it might have been last year, or maybe a year and a half ago now. He needed a bigger truck to pull his camper, so he decided to shop for a 3/4 ton 2500 truck with a diesel. No, he wasn't set on the diesel. He didn't know if he should get the 6 liter gas or the diesel. So he settled on the diesel, and he had these 2500. No, he had these. I'll get to the Dakota in a second. Um, he had these steel wheels for his old 1500 Chevy pickup truck. They were sandblasted. They were ready for paint. My brother was ready to put them by the alley, and I told him, I'm like, I'll take them. So I took them and I put them on Marketplace for three for $25 or $10 a piece. And a guy inquired about them, and he bought all three because he had rust problems with the wheels on his truck. He was going down the road. He was on his way to a doctor's appointment, and the wheel where the bead is, the center part was ready to separate from the rim. So it was pretty dangerous. So he bought all three, and yeah, $25, and sold some other things around the house. I mean, right now is the great time just to sell odds and end things. Just don't price them too outrageous. The Dodge Dakota. In some ways, I miss it. Some ways I don't. Um, I kind of miss that feeling of just driving an old beater pickup truck around, like in the snow and stuff. But but that thing was rusting really bad, and I wanted to get a more roadworthy vehicle because my ma, who was living at home at the time, she had Alzheimer's. She's in assisted living now, but when she was living at home, I wanted a decent vehicle that was low enough, just like the Dakota, so that way she could get in and out of it. I was shopping around for like a luxury car, like a Buick or Oldsmobile, but I just wasn't finding anything that I liked for a decent price. So, so my brother offered me the great 1500 Chevy pickup truck, and I took that. It was 2 grand. I knew the history of it, which was good. It's still running good. Uh, I wish I wish I could find a decent box for it, but otherwise, it's holding up pretty good. It runs pretty good. Um, as far as the Dakota, um, I did a couple VIN checks on it, and that thing is history. The girl I sold it to, she has. I looked her up on Wisconsin Circuit Court, and she has a reputation of getting into like getting traffic citations and stuff. So I think she might have ruined it or cracked or crashed it. I don't know. But the last whereabouts I found where the Dakota was at the scrapyard out in Waukesha, I think it was. So yes, that thing was history. Um, Another thing too. Um, One thing about the Dakota is the um, the freeze plugs on it on that engine block. They were getting kind of questionable. Eventually, they would have probably blew out, and I would have had to replace them. So that would be a big job, and plus the Dakota, the front end, it was questionable. Um, yeah, that front end was very questionable. And maybe it needed ball joints eventually, or maybe needed ball joints and all that front end stuff. But that girl, she bought it for $500. I thought she was gonna use it as a driver for a while, but very quick that thing disappeared off the road, and she didn't live too far away from here. Um, yeah, yeah, the Dakota. One thing that I really miss about it is the way the heat would blow on the floor. Uh, on the driver's floor, as far as a person, my feet get cold. When my feet get cold, the rest of my body gets cold. So on the Dakota, whenever you were driving it, the air would blow on your feet, and it was just a great feeling when you were driving it. That's what I miss. One of the things I miss about it. Um, and also, one of the things I do not miss is the gas mileage. The 318 really drank a lot of juice. It really did. It got about eight. It got about 9 to 10 miles in a gallon. Um, but yeah, um, compared to the 14 or 13 I get right now, the what I get right now with the Chevys is a lot better than what I had with the Dakota. Um, but yeah, yeah, missing driving the old beater truck. It's kind of like driving like those old cars and Grumpy Old Men movie. That Yeah, I think yeah, when I bought that truck, it was as far as rust, it was starting to go. Um, it was starting to go. I watched videos of when I first got it compared to when I last had it. That thing really rusted bad. Um, the front cab mounts on the front, they just disintegrated and they caused the cab to sink like this. The body lines are way off. If I had enough room, if I lived in a rural area, I probably would have kept the Dakota. Um, the engine ran really good in it. Um, I remember shopping on Craigslist a bunch of times, and I've seen like Dakotas like that, like with blown V6s that had perfect bodies. And to do an engine swap from my engine to the V6 vehicle would be super easy. You would have to you would have to switch over the wiring harnesses, but yeah, um, it would be an easy swap. And I had everything right there in the engine compartment for it. But yeah, I mean, my city's pretty picky, and I'm kind of limited as far as room, and yeah, I had to get rid of it. As a matter of fact, the girl that bought that truck, after she bought it, she took it to the high school auto shop because she knew who the shop teachers were because she graduated from there like a year prior, and the Dakota was in the shop. And my coworkers were like, "Oh yeah, your old truck's in the auto shop," you know. So I went and looked at it when it was there, and nothing new. But either way, she nuked it or smashed it up or whatnot. It's history. Yeah. Yeah, I drive the gray truck a lot more than the red one. Um, I switch back and forth between them. The gray truck has more of a car ride feel, and and the red truck, it has more like a it has more of a feel like a luxury car. I switch back and forth depending on my driving mood. One thing recently, my in-law, my brother-in-law was going down to Georgia with my sister to visit my nephew, and in my driveway they left their Dodge Ram Bighorn in the driveway. So I got to drive that. It might be a 2017 or 2018, I don't know. But yeah, that one I was really impressed with the ride. It really rides excellent. Um, One thing I didn't like about the Dodge was the hood scoop on the top because it just was kind of like a blind spot for me. Personally, I would like to see over a hood really properly compared to with that hood scoop, which was kind of an annoyance. But eventually, if I was driving something like that all the time, I'd get used to it. I'm not really a Dodge person. Um, Before I bought the Dodge Dakota, I was looking around for a GM vehicle. I couldn't find a nice one, so the Dakota was the only thing I found. So, the only thing I found. So, yeah, yeah, the Dodge Ram Bighorn really drove nice. I was really impressed with the ride, but the price of the Dodge Ram Bighorn is up there. Me and my neighbor, we were talking maybe about a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the prices of trucks. He always bought brand new Chevys from 91 all the way up to 2005. Um, his recent one he bought in 2005, and it's the Chevy Duramax four door, and he's always a person that's really conservative, spends his money properly, that type of person. Honestly, I think he's probably sitting on a large chunk of money. And like I said, he always bought brand new trucks. And we were talking about our Chevys, and he told me it's just like, with the price of the trucks now, I'm just gonna ride what I got right now to into the ground. And I told him if I ever bought a brand new car, I would buy like a compact car or one of those junior SUVs. Whatever happened to the pickup truck for the working man? It's no more. I mean, you can't get a stripped down vehicle with just the basics anymore. You got to buy the full everything, and that's what sells, and that's what gets on the lots. I mean, people don't want the plain vehicles. And as far as like the Ford Ranger and the Ford F-150, I guess as far as what ruined the Ranger was the price equivalency to the F-150. Both the F-150 and the Ford Ranger, the prices were equal. So the F-150 sold more and the Ranger sold less. Personally, I think the Ranger should have remained a truck for the working man, just a basic little working truck, not none of this luxury crap. And the F-150 would be remaining for the people who want luxury. So yeah, um, no trucks really for the working man anymore. No basic trucks, rather. Just something with all the bling. I mean, and with the bling, you'll be paying out of your ass for it. I mean, my brother-in-law is a road construction worker. He's been working road construction ever since before him and my sister got married, which was in '86. And they were dating when my grandfather committed suicide, and that was in '84. So yeah, he's been working road construction for many years, and from what I've heard, he earns the big bucks. I don't know exactly what he makes an hour, but he really makes the big bucks. I mean, he ain't pouring concrete into sidewalk holes anymore. He's working a machine, so he earns the big bucks. And he works hard. I don't know how that guy does it. He lives in northern Wisconsin. He comes down to Milwaukee County to work. He does that every weekend. He works all week down here, and then he goes up north by my sister, and then for the work week, he comes back down here to Milwaukee County. Personally, I don't know how he does it. It's a rough. I mean, I give him credit for dealing with all that. Yeah, he would leave around 1 o'clock in the morning from my sister's house and his house up north, and then he would come down here for his work week in Milwaukee County, and he would get here. It takes about four. It takes about 4 or 5 hours to get to Milwaukee County from up there, and he gets down here, and by the time he gets down here, it's almost work time, and he works all day, is 8 hours, 8 hours plus, and then he goes home and he's ready to go to sleep as soon as he gets home. Boom. But yeah, he had enough money to buy that truck and finance it. Very nice truck. Rides great. Uh, it's just the price of those new trucks are not for me. Personally, I would look for like a surplus truck. If you could find like surplus trucks like in your local cities, that would be a really good option for people to get a well maintained truck just to bum around in. Um, they may be a little bit beat up, but they're well maintained. So yeah, um, there is. I know Wisconsin has a website where you could look up like you could look up different cities and what vehicles they have for sale or anything they have for sale. You could buy anything um, as far as state surplus things, old school shop equipment, vehicles, everything you could find if you go online, if your state has a website for that type of thing. Yep. Sad thing about the Buick Century. I missed the ride of that car. Um, I had it for years. If I knew then what I knew now, I could have probably preserved that body of that car and it would have lasted me much longer. But that unibody, um, I got underbody flushes I knocked the snow off the quarter panels and stuff during winter time, but the rust still ate it pretty good. And it was just getting unsafe to drive, so I had to dump it. I always will remember the last afternoon I took it for a ride before I parked it at LKQ. I didn't want to go over there to drop it off. It was a fun ride, and then when I did finally park it, it didn't want to start back up again because the battery was crap. It was the second battery I put in it. As long as I've owned the car, as long as I did own the car, because the battery that was in it was an interstate battery. When I first got it, it was new back then, and then that one lasted about 6 or 7 years, and then I got another one, that Farm and Fleet one, which lasted until I junked the car. So yeah, but yeah, that rear undercarriage of that car was just gone. When I seen it in the yard at LKQ, when I looked at it, after looking at it closely, after the forklift started kicking all the rust in, then I started getting thankful of getting rid of that thing when I did, because if I kept on driving I possibly could have gotten to an accident because of the rust on the unibody. It would have failed, and the car would have fell apart, and it was time. I go on Craigslist and I search Craigslist is in other states, and I see mint Buick Centuries like that for like under 3 grand. Really nice ones. Yeah, I've looked. Before I got the gray truck, I looked into buying like a LeSabre or maybe a Delta 88, one of the front wheel drive ones. But one thing you got to really pay attention to, as far as those cars up here in the Rust Belt, is you got to pay attention to the front undercarriage of those cars to see how they rust. Some good videos to watch of those cars, as far as rust is concerned and as far as repairs are concerned, are the videos of BAH 53. He lives in Minnesota. He has been driving those cars off and on for years, and he makes videos on them, showing the rust areas. And yeah, you got to really pay attention to like the cradles on them, where the cradle bolts into the unibody. You got to pay attention to all those areas as far as rust, because yeah, those things do rust pretty bad once they do it. But if you could prevent it from happening, those cars will last forever. Um, I was looking at one like 3 summers ago. It was a Buick Park Avenue. It was from Illinois. It was at this car lot, and underneath it was shocking. It was shockingly clean, and it was a Rust Belt vehicle in Illinois. Around those bushings for the front cradle, the metal above them was nice. It was a clean car. It's surprising how it's shocking how vehicles could rust. You know, that's always was a puzzling thing, how vehicles rust, because they may rust strangely in one area and then they may not rust in another area. It's weird. But yeah, those full size front wheel drive GMs like the Delta 88s and um, what's that? Park Avenues and LeSabres. Those. The Buick LeSabre from 2000 to 2005. The ride is pretty similar, almost exact to the Buick Century I had. They handle just about the same. Maybe since the since the since the LeSabre has a 3800 in it, maybe it's a tad bit faster, but they handle just about the same. That whipped cream, smooth handling, and just crisp acceleration. But the problem with buying cheap LeSabres around here is most of the guys that are selling them, they live in the ghetto. And I don't know if these ghetto rats are just trying to pawn off a piece of shit that they have, you know. I'd rather find somebody that's selling it that's reputable, someone that's owned it for a while, someone that's really honest and didn't own it for 6 months. So, yeah, enough of that. Yeah, one thing about the Dakota, lots of exhaust leaks. I had to change the Y pipe in it because I couldn't get the oxygen sensor loose. I had to change that Y pipe, and I had to hack off the exhaust to do it, and I had to like mend it all together with clamps and a piece of pipe. And I didn't do the greatest of job. I just wanted the thing just to drive and sound halfway decent and pass emissions because emissions was due for it. And just as emissions was due, the check engine light came on and it started stumbling, and I had to get that oxygen sensor changed, and I couldn't I couldn't take it out of the exhaust manifold. I had to take the whole Y pipe out and put a different one in, and the different one I picked up at LKQ wasn't the best. And yeah, so yeah, there was tons of exhaust leaks in that thing. I remember I told my brother a few times. I remember when I had it in the driveway without the white pipe on it. I started it up, and that thing was freaking loud. I mean, it was so loud that I thought the neighbors would be annoyed, and that's what. And the pedal, yeah, it was loud, very loud. I remember when the la I had to change the drums out on the rear of that thing because one of the drums, the outer part, and all the wheel stud holes in it, and then you got the part that's the outer part, like around the drum, and that outer part rusted away. I mean, it came off as one ring, just rusted away. And I really didn't want to spend money for new drums, so I just went to LKQ and found a decent set of cheapest ones. I Yeah. Yeah, with the worn cab mounts in front of the Dakota, whenever you would go over a bump, it would just be clunk, 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 because part of the cab was just to go on a bump, it would shake around. Yeah, that thing was pretty much gone. Like I said, I miss it in some ways, but not. I don't miss it totally. Yeah, I put 7 quarts of oil in my Chevys. It calls for 6, but my brother told me when he sold me the truck that he overfilled the crankcase by 1 quart, meaning 7 instead of 6. And then I started doing that with my red Chevy, and I liked it, so I started doing it with both Chevys, putting 7 quarts instead of 6. It doesn't really hurt it. It may raise the oil pressure just a little bit, but after a few miles of driving, it'll go back to normal. So yeah, and I really didn't feel like eating. I was gonna make a chuck roast for supper. I was gonna make a chuck roast, and when I got done changing the oil on the gray truck, I really didn't feel like cooking. So I was in the mood for fried chicken. So I went to the local grocery store, and they didn't have any on stock. So I went to the Subway sub place next door, and I settled on that, and it said $5 subs in the window, but it turned out the sub was $10 when I got out, when I checked out. Whoever is in charge of marketing as far as Subways, they need to be fired. Ever since they ended the $5 footlong deal, um, I was reading that the business has been going downhill. There was several Subway sub shops that have been closed down already. I guess they did the $5 footlong thing for like 10 years. And if you take that away, what do you expect? Your business is going to go down the shitter. So they made their beds. Now they must lie in it. They should have kept. If the deal went up another dollar instead of $5, raising it up to $6, then it would have been okay. But to take away that $5 deal was just crap. So, anyways, I'm going to sign out, and I hope you guys have a good night, and God bless you. Good night. Bye.